Hey fellow Force users and fellow clickers, what is up? It's Jasmine, the AhsokaTanoFan. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So guys, another week, another new episode of The Last of Us Season 2. I just finished watching episode 4 and it was a pretty epic episode, but there were a couple things that I wasn't the happiest about. So we're going to get into that a bit later on in the video. So without further ado guys, let's jump into it. So this episode opens back with a flashback to 2018 in the quarantine zone, in which we see a Fedra convoy. The gamer in me just felt, oh my gosh, an ambush is coming, because I remember Dina and Ellie coming across an ambushed convoy. Of course, everybody was skeletons inside because it had happened presumably years prior. And it was a Fedra convoy. So that was kind of the feeling I was getting. Oh my gosh, they're going to be ambushed. And especially when they had to stop because the bus was blocking the path. And then we see Isaac. He has a Fedra uniform on. So immediately I was thinking, okay, I guess this is how he started before he joined the WLF. But it wasn't like he was just any of the soldiers. He was their sergeant or their commander. But it didn't really seem like he necessarily liked them that much or got along with them that much, just the way he was speaking to them. Anyways, nonetheless, they do come to a stop, and then there are people outside. Are these the Scars? Is this lady the prophet before the Seraphites really form? Or are these other wolves potentially? And then in a twist that I did not see coming, Isaac turns around and kills all the other Fedra members in the truck, except one. He did spare the one guy. And I find it ironic that he spared the one guy that actually asked a question. It's almost as though he admired his independent thinking and thought that he would be the right person to save in that sense. So yeah, that was shocking and definitely a testament to who Isaac really is. I actually love that we're seeing more of Isaac in the show. That's one thing that I wish we got more of in the game. I feel like he was not used enough, and so we're getting to see that in the show so far, which is great. We then go back to present day, in which we see Ellie and Dina looking through I presume it was a pharmacy for supplies, which, you know, gamers always appreciate this. I always love the downtime when I get to look for my supplies before the next fight, right? And then we see Dina come across something where we don't actually see what it is that she picked up. And right away I was thinking, okay, it's probably something related to her pregnancy. I was thinking maybe something to help with her nausea because she was throwing up a lot, but we later find out in the episode it looked to be pregnancy test that she picked up. We see the two of them exchanging a little bit of banter, and one moment that was kind of funny was they passed by a couple of rainbow flags, pride flags, and they didn't know what it meant, which is ironic because they literally belong to that community. So that was kind of a nice touch. We then get the guitar scene, the famous guitar scene. Ellie does sing the song Take On Me, or Take Me On, can't remember which one it is, and which she does in the game as well. But a couple noticeable differences in this scene. In the game, Ellie starts off by playing Future Days before she switches to Take On Me.
What was that?
I've read this prior to the release of this season that they may not include Future Days in the show because the show takes place 10 years earlier than in the game. So in the game, Outbreak Day was 2013 and the show is 2003. And so at that moment in time, Future Days had not released yet in the real world. So I guess for those reasons, they couldn't actually include it in the show, which is too bad because that song has so much significance, which is why they included it in one of the trailers when they were for The Last of Us Season 2. Another difference as well is that Dina never mentions that Ellie should have kissed her then, and Ellie responding that she wishes she had. Instead, they keep the focus on the fact that Ellie's getting better and that she's learned from Joel.
I don't know what I'm to say, I'll say it. You should have kissed me then. I wanted to. Looking away, I don't know what I'm to say, I'll say. You've gotten pretty good. All those lessons from Joel.
And you know what? I actually don't really mind that change. Any focus on Joel is nice, right? Especially given his untimely death. And it made the scene a lot more emotional in my opinion too, whereas in the game it was kind of cuter, I guess, because they were sort of flirting. But I also think that at this point in the show, Dina isn't really sure of her sexuality. Maybe it wouldn't have made sense in the show for her to say it to Ellie right then and there, I wish you had kissed me. Whereas in the game, at this point, Dina is definitely a lot more sure of her sexuality and feelings for Ellie, so she felt more comfortable admitting that to Ellie. We then go into a pretty intense and graphic torture scene in which Isaac is interrogating one of the scars or seraphites. It was a pretty tough scene to watch. This is also something that's taken from the game, although we don't really see what Isaac is doing to the scars, Isaac and the other WLF soldiers. We can infer what's going on because you, at some point in the game, can kind of walk by the cells and see the prisoners. It was pretty intense to watch. One change I noticed in this scene is that one of the WLF soldiers seemed very uncomfortable with what Isaac was doing, whereas in the game they all kind of seemed to agree with that. And even Abby at one point makes a remark saying, after the day I've had, I wouldn't mind a minute or two with these guys, like implying that she would not mind torturing them to blow off steam, I guess. So I guess they kind of changed that from the show, where they make it seem like not all the wolves are on board with how Isaac does things. So Isaac and the scar and the seraphite, sorry, I shouldn't call them scars, engage in a conversation, if you want to call it that, in which the seraphite is pretty much sticking to his guns. He's not giving Isaac what he wants, and he also insists that Isaac's gonna be on the losing end, which is interesting. More and more wolves are joining the scars, but it's never the reverse. So it kind of does make you realize, or I guess ponder the idea that just because you have all the technology, all the weapons, and all the hospitals, as Isaac mentioned, that won't necessarily guarantee you a win, right? Because at the end of the day, there's more to winning than just that. There's numbers, there's skill as well. Even though you can have large numbers, that won't even necessarily guarantee a win. In the game, you're playing as Ellie and you're going through a lot of people, both killing people and also sneaking past people in a more stealth kind of way. The advantage Ellie and Dina in the game and in the show too, is that the wolves don't know that they're coming for them. When you don't know that someone's coming for you, then that can also contribute to you losing this war, right? And also, to think of it, Ellie and Dina coming is kind of gonna, you can infer, mess everything up, because the wolves are so focused on their war with the scars and vice versa that they're not even considering that a third party could come in and, you know, cause some chaos and do things that they don't expect, and also contribute to killing off their soldiers, whether it's the scars or the wolves. During the scene, Isaac also makes a chicken and egg reference where the two of them go back and forth about who's at fault for why they're fighting. And I think that this kind of reflects the whole idea of the cycle of violence. An eye for an eye makes the world go blind, and that's essentially reflective of Ellie's story even. Abby killed Joel, who's Ellie's father, because he killed her father, and so now Ellie wants to kill her, and then the cycle of violence just kind of goes on and continues like a wheel, right? And it kind of actually, suddenly I'm thinking of when Daenerys talked about how she doesn't want to join the wheel, but she wants to break it, something along those lines.
It's a beautiful dream. Stopping the wheel.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
And you can kind of look at the cycle of violence the same way. Is it worth going onto this wheel where it's just going to continue in the same direction over and over again, or is it worth breaking the cycle of violence? And so will any wolf or any scar ever come to that conclusion and realize that? We then see that Isaac kills the seraphite, and during this time as well, I was wondering who the second WLF soldier was on the other end of that door. We then see it's the same guy that Isaac saved in the flashback from the beginning of the episode, so he's obviously very loyal to Isaac because he feels like he was the chosen one, so to speak. But then we see it's not as one-sided as the show has depicted thus far. It's not the wolves that are all in the wrong and then the scars are completely innocent. We do see in an upcoming scene just what the scars are capable of as well, and we'll get to that shortly. In the next scene, we see Dina and Ellie planning their move essentially outside the TV station, and the gamer and me got so excited because this is another level taken straight out of the game in which you find the strung up bodies of wolves at the hands of the scars. It's a pretty intense level because, you know, obviously, as we saw in the episode, you have to find a way to escape them by either escaping or going through them. I am wondering though, when Ellie and Dina were outside and they saw the broken window and blood, they said someone must have climbed through the window. So I'm wondering if that someone was a wolf, and perhaps the wolf that they saw inside that had arrows through him. Or was it someone else, like Tommy or Jesse? Did one of them go to Seattle without Ellie and Dina knowing? Either way, I just wonder if there's more to that than we're initially led to believe. So we saw the wolf who had arrows through him. That is interesting because that's a scene from the game as well, but in the game it actually happened to a character that hasn't been in the show so far, and her name was Leah, and she was actually one of the ones that was at the house when Joel was killed, and so she was on the list. She was on Ellie's list. And so they went to the TV station to try and kill her, only to find her already dead. So, but it's kind of interesting how they still included that scene, but in a different way. The way they did this scene was amazing. They also had Dina throw up another time, which at this point, it's very evident to gamers that yes, this is definitely because she's pregnant. But even I think non-gamers, maybe they started to question the possibility because it's multiple times now that she's thrown up. And shows don't do that for no reason. They don't focus on something just for the sake of it. It usually has some sort of meaning that is uncovered later on. When they see the scar symbol, Dina also says, "What the fuck is wrong with Seattle?" Which I echo that sentiment. That was such a relatable line because here you are going after Abby, thinking that that's how simple the story is, not knowing that you're getting into a whole new war between these factions, you know. That just kind of sums up the game in a way. What the fuck is wrong with Seattle, right? And then enter the wolves, who find their buddies strung up, and this scene was so suspenseful, so intense. I loved it. I loved how Ellie and Dina were super stealth. Ellie ends up having to confront a WLF soldier, and I was telling myself at the time, get your knife, Ellie, get your knife, because that's what she does in the game. Then comes the subway scene, which is also an amazing scene and level from the game, in which you see a lot of infected. I think even more so than the game from what I can remember. Although there's a different type of infected in the game called a shambler. I don't remember if that was in the subway scene or if that comes later in the game. So we might still see shamblers potentially. They're kind of like bloaters. But anyways, an epic subway scene, and you see the infected pretty much take care of the wolves, and they yet again remind us that they are the common enemy and also the common unifier of the human race. When it comes to the infected, it doesn't matter who you are, which faction you're a part of, they don't discriminate, they will kill you. And in this case, they actually kind of helped Ellie and Dina by first taking care of the wolves. But then, of course, they turned their attention to Ellie and Dina, which is when things got kind of messy. Side note too, one thing in the game that you can do that's kind of fun is that if you have a situation where you're in the subway and there's infected and WLF, or infected and scars, let's say, you could throw a bottle or a brick or something to draw the clickers to them, and then you could just let the two of them fight it out and see which side wins, and then just take care of that side. So it's like less people you have to go through. So anyways, I like that they had both the infected and the wolves in this scene. After a lot of struggle, we see Ellie and Dina finally make their escape, and it looks like they are out of the woods, except for the fact that the subway door gets stuck. And then Dina is about to get bit, and literally the look on her face almost says, this is it, this is how I go out. But then Ellie sticks out her arm to protect Dina, and in so doing gets bit. And then you know what's coming, which is the reveal of Ellie's immunity. There were things I loved about the scene, and then there were kind of small gripes I had with it as well. So first of all, it was very emotional with Dina pointing the gun at Ellie. One thing that I noticed different from the show and the game is that in the game, so Ellie's mask broke. That's how Dina found out she was immune. But Ellie's mask broke, and Dina was actually ready to sacrifice her own life to save Ellie. She was ready to take off her mask and share it with Ellie. So in that scene, it's as if Dina was ready to sacrifice her life for Ellie. But then in this scene, it's kind of more like Ellie is the one making the sacrifice for Dina, which is not a bad change, but it just nonetheless is a change that I noticed. I like that Dina was conflicted and was struggling with whether or not to believe what Ellie was saying. The only thing that annoyed me about this part was that Ellie was taking forever to tell her she was immune. She's got the gun pointed at you. The first words out of your mouth should be, I'm immune, don't shoot. She could have got to the point a lot quicker, and also even mentioned Joel, I'm immune, like that's why, you know, Joel and I were on bad terms. He had killed the Fireflies to save me. They wanted to use me for vaccine. Like, there's so much more she could have said that could have, I guess, de-escalated the situation, for lack of a better word. I guess they just wanted to raise the suspense a little bit by having her take forever. Wait, hold on, no, don't shoot. I know what you're thinking. There's something I have to tell you. Just spit it out already. So we see Ellie wake up with Dina still having the gun pointed at her and the flashlight. And I found this scene almost visually interesting because for a lot of it, you couldn't actually see Dina's face. It was like blocked out by the flashlight. So I don't know what the significance of that was. I don't know if it was supposed to mask her facial expressions. Ellie explains more and then shows Dina her bite. And I guess Dina didn't get any sleep. which kind of sucks now that I think about it. And then you see Dina kind of hesitate before she answers, and then of course, as a gamer, I knew what was coming next, which was that Dina was going to tell her she was pregnant, and she did. And this scene is a scene that I feel a little bit conflicted with. So let's just talk about the elephant in the room, the sex scene. So they definitely remove the weed sex scene from the game and instead kind of put it into the theater. Part of me was like, is now like really the time for this? Really? Like after all that happened? But then I thought, well, maybe when you have a near-death experience, you feel like doing that. And also maybe perhaps this was a big moment for both characters in the sense that for Ellie, she could finally be herself around Dina. She no longer has to hide the fact that she's immune. And that probably made her love Dina more. And then I guess Dina, knowing that Ellie told her the truth and knowing what Ellie did for her, taking the bite, Dina coming close to losing Ellie, that just made her realize that she had feelings for Ellie. So I guess that's why they ended up doing what they did to show that. This scene ends on a high for both of them. Both of them feel very positive towards each other. They're getting along well. Whereas you'll recall if you played the game, it's the opposite. It actually ends on a low note. Ellie basically is mad at Dina for withholding that because she says that they still could have turned back. In game Ellie's mind, she's dead set on revenge and she doesn't want anything impacting that process and that path. And so now she's finding out Dina's pregnant, and now, so like, how are they gonna proceed now going forward? And Dina said, I didn't want to be a burden. That's why I didn't tell you earlier, to which Ellie responds, well, you're a burden now, aren't you? So, ouch. Yeah, I always thought that line in the game from Ellie kind of hurts, given everything that Dina had gone through for her. But yeah, in that context, it kind of made sense because you're out in Seattle, super far from home. You're finding out about a pregnancy. Ellie's going to be now thinking, oh my gosh, like what happens if something happens to us? What if we get hurt? What if you get sick? We can't turn back. It's understandable she would have those emotions. Whereas I guess in this episode, they were on such a high, they're not even thinking about all that. The two things I wasn't really crazy about, I'll say, how they were talking about raising the kid and how they're gonna have a family with complete lack of regard and respect for Jesse. In my opinion, it felt kind of disrespectful to Jesse. Yes, it is clear that Dina has stronger feelings for Ellie than Jesse, and it took all this happening for her to realize that. I definitely understand that. But at the same time, like, it's the man's child too. You can't just act like, oh, I'm pregnant. Okay, Ellie, we're gonna raise a kid together, and like, without any consideration for Jesse. And then by the end of the scene, they're like, oh, the three of us are gonna be parents. I'm gonna be a dad. It's like, no, like, you gotta talk to Jesse first. At least have some consideration for the man. That kind of almost makes Dina not look good. What I think would have actually been more realistic in that sense would have been if Ellie found out Dina's pregnant, and up until then they had been on good terms, and I guess their feelings for each other are getting stronger, but then the pregnancy makes Dina feel conflicted about whether or not she should go back to Jesse because he's the father of the child, or continue her relationship with Ellie. I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of Dina feeling conflicted and considering all options, rather than just right away saying, oh, I'm pregnant, we're gonna have a family, Ellie, without any consideration for Jesse at all. I just think it's so disrespectful to Jesse. I don't know, that's just how I saw it. For those that have played the game, we kind of know a little bit what happens with that later on and why things end up the way they do. But I think with the game, it was handled with a lot more consideration than in the show. Also, I did find that in this scene, they started explaining a little bit too much. So for example, when Dina was saying, oh, like these times I threw up, it was because of this, that. And in the pharmacy, this is what I got. Because sometimes it's actually nice to leave that up to the audience to interpret. So then the episode ends with another area. I believe they said it was Lake Hill being under attack. It seems the wolves are under attack, as they heard through the comms, and you heard Nora's name on the comms. So gamers, we know what scene is coming up next. And I can't wait. I'm super excited. I do kind of like how they ended the episode. It was somewhat of a cliffhanger, like, oh, what's gonna happen next sort of thing, right? Ellie tells Dina here that she doesn't have to continue if she doesn't want to which Dina basically says that she is gonna go with her, that they're together. And that was a small change from the game as well. That scene happened early on in the game, just before they left for Seattle. Ellie said, I don't want you to feel like you have to come with me. And then Dina basically says, where you go, I go. End of story. I actually thought that was such a touching moment. I loved, and just a testament to how good a person and girlfriend Dina is to Ellie. But yeah, so now they kind of save that moment, but for this scene instead, which is still good. But that being said, I wonder if Ellie and Dina are going to be together the whole time, because there are some parts in the game where they're not together, where Ellie does certain things, you know, not with Dina. That's all I'll say. So I wonder if they're going to keep that or change that going forward. But yeah, nonetheless, I'm definitely looking forward to next week's episode, to seeing how it all comes together. So overall, guys, again, I think it was an episode with so many epic moments. I just had those couple gripes that I listed at the end of the video. You guys let me know down below in the comments, as always, what your thoughts are of the episode. And as always, guys, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all for the next video. Until next time, guys, take care and see you soon.